Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a defining figure of US history, arguably the most impactful activist for civil rights. He was a leader who dreamed of letting freedom ring for all Americans, regardless of race. His legacy of change through nonviolence and civil disobedience is well known. But what many don't know about is King's close relationship with the Jewish community of his day. Through his tumultuous battles for civil rights in the 1950s and 60s, King was allied with many leading Jewish figures. How are King's teachings relevant to Jews today? On April 12, 1963, King was imprisoned for protesting racism and racial segregation in Alabama. While awaiting bail, he penned his famous Letter from a Birmingham Jail. It was conceived in response to a letter from local white ministers who criticized King's decision to protest in Birmingham in the first place. In the letter, the jailed minister conveyed his reasons for showing up in Birmingham. He claimed he was there because injustice was there. He also responded to his critics with criticism of his own, saying that white moderates prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. The idea parallels a discussion in the Mishnah by Hillel the Elder about the idea of a rodef shalom, or one who pursues peace above all else. One Jew who embodied rodef shalom is Rabbi Joachim Prinz, a contemporary and friend of Dr. King. Having witnessed the horrors of Nazi Germany prior to his emigration to the US, Prinz was intimately familiar with prejudice and hate, which galvanized him to fight for civil rights. Even before his immigration, Prinz spoke publicly about inequality in the US and was critical of American Jews who were apathetic to the cause. At the March on Washington in August 1963, Prinz spoke immediately before King delivered his game-changing "I Have a Dream" speech. He touched on the Jewish people's origins as slaves and claimed that when God created man, he made him as everyone's neighbor, with a collective responsibility for the preservation of man's dignity and integrity. King echoed this a few minutes later when he preached that one of the main goals of his movement was to
transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
King and Prinz both understood their respective communities' journeys from persecution to civil rights was part of a larger ongoing battle in which everyone, brothers, sisters, neighbors, and strangers, were obligated to show up. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, a theologian and professor at the Jewish Theological Seminary, was another rabbi friend of Dr. King. Heschel participated with King in numerous speeches and protests. At one point, he called King the voice of God in our time. After walking with King and other religious leaders in the 1965 Selma to Montgomery March for voting rights, Heschel described the trek as spiritually moving, like he was praying with his legs. King also used his growing global influence to help the Jewish community. He frequently chastised the Soviet government for the treatment of its Jewish citizens, co-sponsoring conferences on the plight of Soviet Jewry. In 1965, he was awarded the American Liberties Medallion by the American Jewish Committee for his exceptional advancement of the principles of human liberty. Throughout his public life, King fought antisemitism, even within the African American community. He was also a friend to Israel. In a 1968 speech, King called Israel one of the great outposts of democracy in the world. It's no shock then that following King's tragic assassination in Memphis in 1968, many in the Jewish community mourned deeply with the rest of the country. Thousands of American Jews participated in memorials and interfaith services for the martyred minister. On the day King's body was laid to rest, over 700 Jewish schools and organizations around the country closed out of respect. Jewish leaders around the world acknowledged King's stunning legacy. King's support of Jews parallels his own guiding principles of helping out one's brothers and sisters, an immortal Jewish value. King's emphasis on community, education, justice, and reaching out to one's enemies continue to resonate. In his ongoing fight for justice, King transcended divisions to work with different communities, religions, and races. The pursuit of a union that benefits all is resonant in American Jews today, who live in a society that still strains under racial division and political partisanship.